But basically, if you turn on the drip on a regular basis and keep the soil moisture consistent, the roots don't go into any shock. Now, we're not talking about wet soil. Some people get carried away and turn the system on too long. We're talking about so moist that you can hardly see the color difference. But the water's there, the moisture is there for the roots. They know it's there, whereas we may not be able to see it as much in a color difference. But the point being, if you maintain a consistent moisture level for the whole growing season, things never dampen down or stress out from too much water or stress out from too much drought between cycles. So that's where people say, oh, I'm going to water every Saturday or twice a month or once a month. Well, that puts you through these cycles of where the soil gets dry enough that the roots aren't happy. Then you have to run the system longer to get the soil moist again. And then oftentimes it gets too wet and the roots aren't happy because they're not able to get as much air. So the deal about getting greater yields is to turn the system on a frequent basis. And this is really hard for people to digest because they've always heard, oh, turn it on and off once a month or once a week or infrequently but deep. Well, most of the roots in the top 6 to 12 inches. So that's as deep as I worry about. I don't worry about 2 feet down or anything like that. But trees are vegetables.
You do advise, though, before you go to this daily watering regimen, that you thoroughly soak the garden, especially if it's a raised bed. Make sure that the whole area is saturated, and then you can do that daily spurt, if you will.
Yes. And so that means that once you know how to base the irrigation on the weather, you adjust the system to come on every day, but you adjust it for tiny amounts of water. It's like a lot of systems, I'm doing 1 to 3 minutes a day to keep things happy at the most. Sometimes you only need 15 minutes a day, depends upon the amount of water you need to apply. But the point being that this way of approaching it, you can get at least, on the average, 20% increase in yields. There's a woman in India that did chili peppers, and she used 38% less water, but she got a 48% increase in the yields. So it can be quite dramatic.
One of the questions I get very frequently concerns people with raised beds, and they have a drip irrigation system, and they complain about how they have to go back and water by hand because the plants keep wilting or the production is down. And one thing that people forget is the footprint of water. And in a raised bed with all that nice loose soil in it, it's a very narrow footprint, a cylinder, if you will, that of water that descends into the soil. With drip irrigation and in sandy soil, that cylinder may only be a few inches wide. If you have clay soil,
carrot.
Yeah, like a carrot, right? And if you have clay soil in the ground, that drip irrigation system profile of water might be 12 inches, 18 inches across.
Yeah, the heavier the clay, the wider it gets. It's more like a rutabaga.
Right, there you go. So I think that's the thing I see as the mistake in most drip irrigation systems in raised beds. The parallel lines in a raised bed, there aren't enough of them. They're spaced too far apart.
Yes. Basically, I try to get the equivalent of one emitter for every square foot. I use inline emitter tubing where the emitters are built inside the tubing, but they have to be pre-installed every 12, 18, 24 inches, depending on what you buy. So I use inline emitter tubing where the emitters are every 12 inches. On a 3-foot wide bed, I can get away with just 2 tubes, but on a 4-foot wide bed, I put 4 tubes. So the 4 parallel lines the whole length of the bed.